Hello guys, the topic of this video is so you won't come to the Philippines. It's primarily for people that have actually never traveled out of the country. Uh, and there are a lot of YouTube videos out there about preparing to come to the Philippines. In fact, that's how I got myself situated when I came here by watching YouTubers that are vlogging out of the Philippines, and there are a bunch of them. Uh, Old Dog has his channel, Rike, Geo in the Philippines, Sunshine Shoulders. There's a bunch of bloggers that blog about coming into the Philippines. I'm doing this video primarily for those probably be close to my situation. I was 63 years old before I ever considered getting a passport. I had no notion, no intention of ever applying for a passport because up until that time I had no intention of traveling. But the passport process is relatively straightforward. If you're a first timer, it's real simple. You can Google it on your phone. It'll give you the requirements. Basically, proof of your nationality, uh, which your birth certificate will do that. ID from the state that you're in, and they may require some mail records or bank statements from your bank. Uh, it's not an overwhelming amount of requirements. Now, I applied for my passport pre-COVID, and I traveled my first trip right before the COVID outbreak, and my second trip was right near the middle of the end of it. So I've had experiences from both sides of it. And coming to the Philippines during the COVID pandemic was extremely stressful. It's stressful enough for the first time of being an international traveler. Just doing what you got to do to get from one airport to the other and to your terminal, especially if you go to Atlanta, which is in the southeast, and most likely you will go to Atlanta to go to Korea, Japan, wherever they're going. Usually, at the time I came last, Japan was still closed due to COVID. But the passport in itself is a fairly easy process. It takes 6 to 8 weeks. You can pay to have it expedited, and you have to do this in person. Uh, it's not near as hard, actually, in the States for a citizen to get a United States citizen to get a passport, as it is here in the Philippines for a Filipino to get a Philippine passport. I know this because I assisted my girlfriend financially to get hers, and the documentation that they require is a lot more than what we do in the U.S. But that's pretty much the same with all paperwork here in the Philippines. It's a mountain of paperwork. It reminds me of the 1970s in the United States. But there we go. So there are a lot of issues to think about when you get ready to travel and you decide, okay, I'm going to go out of the country, in this case to the Philippines. You've got to make some decisions about whether or not you're going to come here and stay, or whether or not you're going to come for a visit, whether or not you're going to come just check out, the scenery, do a vacation thing, because the Philippines has over 7,000 islands, and some of them are the most beautiful in the world, and they're highly ranked in terms of international tourist spots. So you have to have a focus on what you're coming here for and how long you're going to stay. Now, a lot of questions come up around that specific issue because when you plan to go approximately 12 or 13,000 miles, depending on how your route comes and where you go when you arrive in the Philippines. It takes a little bit of planning. Now, I'm assuming that most of you that are looking at this video have resources to do this. Now, myself, I work for a non-profit organization, and so I didn't have a lot of money saved up, and it took me quite a while to work on saving for this trip and planning. So if you are even considering this for the future, start now planning to save as much as you can for future endeavors, because I promise you, you're going to need it. When you get in the Philippines, unless you're a specialized worker or you're here on a humanitarian visa or some other visa, you're not going to be working here. Philippine government is trying very hard to train their own workers and keep foreigners out of the picture, if you will. So, right back. I had a need for some speed. So working over here is not really an option. Most expats end up over here doing some kind of online work or blogging. In my case, I'm blogging because I'm bored and have nothing much to do. And if possible, in a couple of years, I'll probably make enough money to get me some more coffee if I get my sound up. But finances is a big consideration when in your plans to travel. Now, another issue that comes up, family. And of course, if you're just coming for a short visit, it's not that big a deal. But if you're planning to stay here long term, then you've got to look at the family ties you have. You've got to do some serious evaluation of where you at in terms of your relationship with your family, whether it's your kids, your ex-wife, whoever it is. Because invariably, every one of them going to tell you crazy when it gets to the point that you decide you might want to permanently retire in the Philippines. So, you've got family issues to address, you've got financial issues to address. If you have any assets, then home, things of that nature, you're going to have to make some decisions about whether or not to liquidate or keep, maybe rent them out, do a lease or purchase, whatever that you might want to do in order to secure your home. Now, my case is real easy. I didn't have much but the clothes on my back, a couple of guitars, and so I bought those here. One of them anyway, gave the other one away to the young lady here that's aspiring on YouTube to be a singer. And her name is Annie Rose Ngall. I encourage you to look up her YouTube channel if you see this video and follow her. Very talented young lady that's an upcomer and much like me, very, very new to YouTube. So, we talked about finances, we talked about family considerations, and the next thing I think that's important for you as a potential traveler to the Philippines think about is the culture. Be prepared for culture shock. The Philippines, uh, right before COVID, was boasted throughout, the international financial community as an upcoming tiger economy. I believe that's the way they phrased it back then. But even at that point, they were talking about the nucleus of the Philippines, which is Makati and Manila and some of the surrounding big cities there, and some of the other ones in the outreaches. Remember, they have 7,000 plus islands here, and there's so many of them not even really inhabited. Uh, it's some of them aren't even explored. Uh, so the Philippines is a huge archipelago, and when you get off the plane, you're gonna realize, oh my God, this ain't Kansas anymore. And indeed, it's not Kansas anymore. So the culture, getting used to the culture and the customs and acclimating and adjusting, that's going to be a real big issue for anyone coming to the Philippines. And that really goes into a discussion if you're considering a long-term stay here. But for the purpose of this, we're just going to get back to the first-time traveler going to come over and check it out. Now, that, even just the first-time traveler coming over to check it out, unless you've got a pretty big stack of bucks, if you're regular Joe, ain't got a whole lot of money, that's going to require a lot of planning, because plane tickets over here during the pandemic, flights were non-existent for the longest part of the pandemic. Airlines were canceling, and governments was bailing out airlines, as you're all aware, in order to keep them afloat. Here in the Philippines, the Philippine Airlines is the signature airline of the country. As far as assistance from the government for them during that time, it's a whole nother different story. Nothing like the USA, where the big carriers were easily, I don't want to say bailed out, but given loans and stimulus to keep them going, to keep them from belly up. So that time was, that 2-year period was a very turbulent time. But the plane prices, for example, I'll just I can give you my information because that's what I have as a frame of reference. My first round trip over here cost $2,300. Now, I got online, I didn't even book it. I had a fellow sitting there with me at the Salvation Army, and Sean Lowe. We got sitting there, and I'd never booked a flight. I mean, I've been looking at the app, and I knew that I could probably do it online, but my God, I ain't never been on a plane. I mean, 63 years old, first time passport, first time travel. I avoided planes religiously all my life. I was just scared shitless of getting on a plane. I just didn't figure God made folks fly. I'm a bit old-fashioned, and I guess my balls wasn't big enough to get on a plane up until that point. But nonetheless, it cost me $2,300 some odd dollars round trip. Now, I was coming back anyway. But while we're talking about this round trip component, the Philippines is one of those countries that require you have an outward ticket. I mean, when you get to immigration, it's not enough just to show your passport and go on in. Nowadays, it's just not enough. It never was. In fact, when I came in the last time, pre-COVID, it was my passport, and I had to have proof of an exit flight, and that exit flight had to be within 30 days of my visa on arrival. The Philippines is not a visa-free country. People say you can come, think you can come and be here visa-free 30 days. Well, it's not a visa-free. It's visa on arrival. Your passport's actually stamped when you come here, and your exit ticket has to be within the time frame of the 28 or 30 days that you're allotted upon your arrival. So, coordinating and scheduling the ticket. Now, there's this app that a lot of seasoned travelers use called onwardticket.com. I'm not endorsing them. I'm just throwing this out there. These are things that I picked up while I was on the YouTube search, preparing to get back over here. I did not want to take a chance because on tickets, it's a disposable ticket. You buy it, and it's a lot cheaper an exit ticket for some country, Singapore or whatever, wherever you want to make it to, in order to meet the requirement of the government. But you have to time that thing pretty close. It after so many hours, kind of hangs up there in the cloud. You pay 12 or 14 bucks, whatever the going price is for those tickets, and the clock starts ticking. So if you don't coordinate that onward ticket within the time frame that you anticipate being there in front of the immigration agent, it's a risk. I don't encourage it at all. A lot of the airlines will check before you board on your connecting flight to see if you have all these requirements met, and much more so during COVID time. That was a hoot. I think I mentioned on another video that I just got to rambling about traveling during COVID. Well, it took about 2 additional hours just to check the paperwork that they had required. They, meaning the Philippine government, and airlines required it to check it, because if you didn't have any of those documents in order, you were subject to be offloaded. And old fellow like me, I was horrified of the possibility of being offloaded in South Korea or Japan. It turned out South Korea, that's where we went from Atlanta, and that was a long flight. But Atlanta, it took about 2 hours to check the paperwork. Korea was the same way, and it took about an hour here in the Philippines to get through immigration at that time, and that was during when they had just opened up, 3 or 4 months after they had opened up. I waited about 3 months to make sure they weren't going to change their mind and close back down. Of course, at that time, supply and demand for tickets went up, and so the airplane fares went up. Definitely a positive correlation between demand and cost, for any of those of you who are concerned about economics. So to show you the difference, I told you my pre-flight was $2,300 pre-COVID, a round trip ticket. This time I think my ticket was $2,650. And of course, I didn't buy an exit ticket. I bought a round trip ticket back to the United States, because at that time, the airlines were desperate for flyers, and prior to the Philippine government announcing they were opening up, Delta Airlines had a campaign where you can book your flight up to 2023, December of 2023, reschedule your flight and just pay whatever difference there is in your fee. So the fee at the price at the time. For me, it was an insurance policy. Should I need to get back to the United States for health reasons or whatever else. So the flight, coming over here and being exposed to this culture, going through immigration. I'm going to try to stay focused here for the sake of the newcomers, the ones that's the first time flyers. Well, as of to date, they have this thing called E-Pass that you have to get, and they are allowing people to come into the Philippines unvaccinated, providing they can provide a COVID antigen test within 24 hours of booking their plane. I'm regressing a little bit here. And my case, I've been here like 9 months, so I came back right after the time that it just opened back up, and COVID restrictions were still ungodly. Just to give you an example of the things that I had to have during the second flight, right near the end or the middle of the COVID thing. I had to have a passport, it had to be valid, have 6 months validity on it. I had to have a health insurance company, travel insurance, and the amount of, the minimum amount, $30,000. And there was a company called Bluebird, Blue Jay. You can find them on the internet and on some of these bloggers' channels that they just get on your phone, you put in your information, and they'll give you the policy right there on your phone. Travel insurance, and specifically travel insurance that had coverage for COVID. Now, any of these policies, I'm going to tell you this now for those who don't know anything about travel health insurance. It's a reimbursement thing. If people give them to reimburse you, and I don't know, I never used it. I just got it for the purpose of traveling. But I do know that you have to pay cash up front, and that you are reimbursed by the insurance company, assuming you file a claim timely and they agree to the terms of the claim and find it concurrent with their policy or in line with their policy. So, travel insurance, passport valid within 6 months. The travel insurance, negative RT-PCR test. Now, in my case, I was worried to death because any of these things you don't have could get you offloaded. I paid $150 for a rapid RT-PCR test there in Mobile, Alabama, at a small drugstore. They were the only ones in the area there doing this RT-PCR test, and with a printout of the results and certified laboratory results. And of course, getting a quick one, getting the results quick, costs money. And then in the meantime, just in case, actually I'd scheduled the one through Rite Aid there in Mobile, Alabama. But nobody could guarantee, Rite Aid and none of the other people that the government used, the insurance, the government used to do these free antigen tests or RT-PCR. And that's another thing, you had to make sure it was exactly an RT-PCR and not an antigen, because rapid antigens, people were getting offloaded because they took a rapid antigen test and not an RT-PCR. It was a nightmare during that time of travel. But anyway, I took one at Rite Aid, and sure enough, I didn't get the results, so I was already in the Philippines. So I'm glad I went ahead and I paid that extra money. Now, at this juncture, for those of you that are interested in traveling, uh, most of the airports, the big airports, do those. Uh, uh, you can do that while you wait for your flight. I would encourage you not to because shit happens. I encourage you not to do that. I would encourage you to plan ahead and schedule your flight as best you can within the time frame of the 24 hours through a lab that you know will even a drugstore, whatever that will get your results back to you so that you can have those when you get on the plane. Now, some folks, I've seen folks ask me, does that mean what if I get on the plane, it takes me 48 hours to get there, does my results expire? It's not after you get on the plane. It's 24 hours prior to your port of origin or your departure flight. And so if you go I'll use my example, I went from Mobile to Atlanta, and I was worried to death that they were going to consider Atlanta the departure point of origin for leaving the country. But actually, my ticket showed connecting flights from Mobile to Atlanta to South Korea through to the Philippines through various airlines that contracted with Delta to do this. And thankfully all of them were there, none of them canceled, there were no delays, and I didn't have any issues with having to rebook a plane. But the rapid antigen test, the passport that was valid with at least 6 months on the passport, the traveler's insurance you had to have, also the exit ticket or round trip ticket, and I would even risk using all my tickets, so a round trip ticket. I got a round trip ticket, and if you hold your breath right, and of course I didn't mention the documents that you have to do on the plane, declaration documents that you're given on the plane to fill out regarding where you go, how much money you got, if you're bringing anything into the country that he's declaring. I believe that the amount for declaring to the Philippine government when you come in cash is $10,000. Of course, I didn't bring that much money. I learned not to bring money. I had arranged through some services that I used there in the state to have my money transferred to my girlfriend's bank account. Now, that is that's the decision I made. But you got to be in the Philippines to set up your own bank account, and that's a whole other ball of wax that they have a list of requirements for that pretty much makes it virtually impossible to set up a bank account when you come here on a tourist visa. But you can wire money to yourself. There's some services that you can use. And I guess I'm just rambling on, but that's probably logically the next place you need to go. How do you move money? Well, you can do it a couple ways. You can do bank-to-bank wire transfers. So if you have or have established a bank account here in the Philippines, then you can transfer your money through just wire transfers. There are several banks. There's a Philippines National Bank, and I believe in California. I did not open an account with them. I considered it. It was an online account where you could just open it up, and I didn't do that. But if you have a bank account there, Schwab or some of you folks that have money, BBC or some of the bigger banks, then you can transfer your money. But there are several services out there that you can use if you do not. TransferWise, Western Union, uh, Zoom, and Remitly. That's at least four right there that you can set up and have your money transferred to uh, an account here in the Philippines. Now, again, I'm not encouraging anyone to do that. That's just the decision I made to safely, as best as I could assure the safety, to safely move my money without having to carry large amounts of cash on me and pay those exorbitant ATM fees every time you make a withdrawal here in the States or in the Philippines. Every time you make a withdrawal, there's a charge for using the ATM. The bank charges you for making a ATM withdrawal. Then there's the exchange rate, so your money's getting eat up there every time you do an ATM withdrawal. And don't get in trouble with an ATM here. If an ATM is offline or the power goes down, which it does in the Philippines quite often, especially out in the province areas, you'll find yourself. I sent my girlfriend to the ATM to get a couple $100 for whatever we were going to do. We're going to make a trip somewhere. Well, the power was out. It was doing this now, blinking. And she's sitting there trying it over and over, hoping that she can catch it while it's online. Well, in the meantime, I get a notification on my phone, I've reached my limit. And we didn't get anything out of the ATM. And so I had to go through a big thing with my bank over investigating my claim. They ended up, they have this way of crediting your account for the amount that it's like a trial, I guess. They put the money in your account, and then they do their investigation. And if they deem it to be valid, then they credit your account for that amount. If they deem it not to have been a transfer or a transaction, then, well, I'll give you an example. I just lost $730-something because of those ching-ching, 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 ching-ching. And I didn't know about this. I didn't know that they put that money in my account in the cloud and were doing an investigation. I just thought it was going to be the one where it actually went through. I suspected it was $200 because she said it went through, but no money came out. But the next ones, no money came out. But again, the ATMs could be a hassle over here for you. And you have to be so careful about the ones you use, and quite often they're offline. Quite often they're out of money, especially on payday for the Filipinos, because they'll go right there and they'll just milk all the cash out of it. And there's any number of reasons why I would suggest that you don't use an ATM here, or you minimize your use of an ATM. TransferWise, I don't work for them. In fact, I pay them more money. I probably supported them for the last 3 years. But I have used it that long. And I've had no problem whatsoever with my transfers going through. I've had zero problems. I can highly recommend their service, at least from my perspective. I'm not a tech-savvy fellow, but I figured out I had to do some of this tech stuff in order to get myself situated over here. And TransferWise works out great for me in my situation. So that brings up another thing. It's not just, okay, so you want to come to the Philippines, you got issues with your family, you got financial things you got to think about, you've got your passport, it's not just that. Now, you've got to get here and you've got to realize, hey, I'm in another world. Now, I'm going to do this for the sake of the video. My girlfriend doesn't like this, but I'm going to show y'all this. This is an add-on that I did to this house when we got here. It's an upstairs, and I think I can open this door real quick. And the light's probably not good, but you'll get an idea. I did this add-on. I paid for it. Okay, and it cost me around $2,300 to have the carpenters come in and do this work. And that's a whole nother trip. You have to feed these jokers. They take beer breaks. Yeah, and they go to lunch and siesta. And come back when they come back. Now I let my girlfriend deal directly with them because that's another thing. The minute you step off the plane, you're a foreigner, you're perceived as having money. Now, everybody knows me, knows I'm poor as church mouse. I worked like hell to save enough money to do what I did for about 3 years to get to the point that I'm at to come here. But that does not register in the Filipino's brain. You can get off that plane if you can afford a ticket here, you've got money. And it's not just the Philippines, but Mexico, any place you go, you're going to be marked as a tourist. But here, you're marked, and I hate to use the term skin tax. Really, I guess it's just a foreign tourist tax. Because automatically, a chicken costs maybe 300 pesos if the Filipino goes up there and orders it. But if I go to the market and I try to buy it, all of a sudden now we're looking at 400 or 500 pesos for the same chicken. The taxi driver tried to scam us for $100 driving from Naiya Airport in Manila to a motel that was probably 10 or 12 miles from the airport. Or kilometers. They don't use miles over here. I don't even know exactly what the hell a kilometer is, but you can sort it out if you do the math on the phone. But the guy started talking in Visaya or Tagalog. I don't know what the hell they're saying. I'm just sitting there. Anyway, I'm looking around pretty light. Okay, we get to the motel. My girlfriend tells me to get out. She speaks English very minimally. She takes a lot better than she speaks English. She said, "Get out, get the bags." So I get out, I get the bags, and she tells the driver, "Here," and she gives the driver 500 pesos. Now 500 pesos is about $10. And the driver, she says, "Well, we can stay here in Visaya, by the way, not English." She tells me this way, "We can stay here till the police come and you can explain why you are charging me, I'm a Filipino, with a foreigner, $100 for a taxi ride." So I learned early on that you pretty much, I'm not saying you can't make transactions in the Philippines as a foreigner. I mean, I do. I've gone to places and bought things. Here in the province, they know me. I mean, I'm Joe, the Opal, bald head. But they sent me around for a while. And I've been in Dipolog City, and I've stayed in some of the cheaper hotels there because I couldn't afford the Richmond. And I love coffee. And I went down to the little thing there. They finally put a little 3-in-1 coffee shop right in the hotel. And Nora had gone somewhere, or was asleep or whatever, and I decided I wanted coffee. So I go down there, like I know what I'm doing, go in and sit down, and I got my pesos because I prefer to use the little notes because the little coins, they are all silver except for some of the maybe 20 pesos that have a little bit of or nickel. I ain't sure it's silver. I don't know how much it, but it's hard to see the denominations on it. So I had my little money lined up. I knew what I was supposed to be paying for that. I mean, and indeed, they only charged me like 12 pesos for the 3-in-1 coffee. Now, 12 pesos is probably about a quarter US dollars. So I felt, okay, I got over pretty good on that. But to give you a little more example about that, they have these things here called sidecars, trikes. In fact, I have one myself. But they use those for transportation in town. Now, I don't ever get on the trike myself. I always let my girlfriend negotiate with the trike driver or the taxi driver. Not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, it's kind of like anywhere else. People will try to take advantage of the situation. So that the issue of handling money, you got to get to where you know what something costs. It really requires you to do a lot of research and just expect that people are going to try to take advantage of you. If you have a problem with your temper, or you have anger issues, you will learn very quickly that temperance is the way to go here, because you're born in a faraway country. Okay, automatically, if anything happens, you're at fault. Now, that I'm not knocking the government. I'm not knocking the Philippines. I'm just telling you the reality of it. Another example I'd like to share with you, just to give you an idea of the reality of this place. I decided once I got here to get a driver's license. Well, I had a USA driver's license. I hardly ever used it because people know me know I have a degree of visual impairment. But with my lenses, corrective lenses, I can see to drive. So I come here to the Philippines and I decide I want to be legal. There's a town about 30 or 40 kilometers here called Sindangan. So that's the closest, what they call it, LTR, Land Transportation Office, LTO. So we go there. Well, going there requires us to get up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning and get on the bus here because there is no set schedule for the buses. They have buses and vans, they come, and they know about what time they come, so they go to the port and the bus stop, which is really nothing but a long shed overhang, and wait for the bus. So we do that, and we get there. It takes us about an hour to go to 30-something kilometers because of the roads and infrastructure is so bad here. We get there, they're not even open yet. There's some chairs sitting outside. So we go and sign our name on this paper. And about the time they're due to open up, this guy walks out. He calls us over here. And he starts saying, what do you want? And not letting us in the building. Now me not knowing if it was a COVID restriction or what the procedure was, because I didn't know he spoke to Madam Pascal. I followed him over there. And I told him what I wanted, and he said, okay. And about 2 hours later, I hadn't heard back from him. So we went to this little mall there, got back on another track and rode to the little mall and came back. Well, this time he pulled me over further. He wanted us to go to the other building over there. And he basically told me it was 180 US dollars to get my driver's license transferred to a Philippine driver's license. And by that time, I done got hot and mad, and I didn't say what I wanted to say to him, but I just said, there ain't no way in hell. And I told Nora to come on, and we left. And ended up paying quite a bit more money to go to another town in Dipolog City to the LTO there, and I ended up paying them $85, I believe it was, to get my driver's license transferred. And this is through legitimate office. Me going in the office talking to the officers, or Nora talking for me, with me. Even then, I paid for all the eye exam, which I never got, all these other things that they wanted to pay for, and I ended up with my driver's license. I was so tickled. I looked down there, and I got black eyes listed on my driver's license. By this time, I really didn't care. I was just glad to get them. So that, to give you a little idea about how the Philippines works. Corruption in this country runs rampant. It's all over the news about the Bureau of Prisons here. And it's not just one, it's something that's prevalent in the Philippines. So you have to deal with that anywhere you go, and you have to be very cognizant of what's going on with you and who you're dealing with. So that in and of itself is enough to give you second thought, or at least have some good plans in place, or have plenty of money to give away. Now, this shirt I got on, everybody knows me and knows I wouldn't wear nothing like it. But over here they love these colors. They love bright, vivid colors. It's part of their culture. And it's a tight, clean shirt. Although I've lost about 30 pounds since I've been here, I don't care to wear tight-fit clothes. But it's hard to find anything for a guy's size. I weigh about 185 pounds now. And double X over here is about like a small in the USA. So that's another thing. If you're a big guy, when you come over here, plan to bring just a few clothes, the clothes that you need, your electronics. Don't worry about, that's another thing I fretted over incessantly, was having a way to communicate. Last thing I wanted to do was end up in Asia without a way to communicate with primarily my bank, Social Security Administration, and the family that I stay in contact with. Those things, I had to have a means of communication. And I'll mention the service in the States, Google Fi. I had that set up before I left. Google Fi is a great service, but there's a thing going around, if you've been over here and they know you're overseas over 6 months and you're still using their service, they're subject to cut it out, because the intent of it was to be for people basically in the United States just going out of the country, using coming back. Anyway, I set up Google Fi, and I get over here, and I worried to death about a SIMS card, and how am I going to make this work? Well, the Google Fi works, and for the first few months, for a month, I think a month or so I used it. And then I realized, hey, I can use Messenger to call family. I can use Skype. Skype has a paid service. You can get $4 or $5 a month to call specific areas in the world. I set my plan up for North America in the United States. So anytime I make a call now, I just use Skype. So, and so far I've had no complaints with it. The internet is, anytime you use a VoIP, the internet is going to be the issue that you better be concerned with. But for me, and knocking on wood to this day, I've had no problems. I get my bank when I need to. I call and say when there's something I need to call about. So all the fretting that you guys are doing about getting over here and having service work, you can buy services, they use loads over here. I think buying a load is a waste of money. By the time you buy a $1, $2 load, turn your phone on and you turn it off, all the incoming notifications will leave you up to gigabyte or 2 gigabytes of data before you even used it. So I don't even have a phone service here, but they have, I think, Smart and Globe. I think that's two of their services here that you can get a monthly plan with. And as a foreigner, I think that you have to pay. It's a pay as you pay in advance, pay ahead of time before you use the service on a monthly basis. I don't use it. I found out that Skype works fantastic for me. And just a bit of information for those of you that ever use Google Fi or considering it. I would recommend the service. When I got over here, I thought I could cut mine on and off. There was a thing in the app, you can cut this off. Well, guess what happened when I cut mine off? I went to cut it back on. They wouldn't let me cut it back on because now I'm not in the States anymore. I explained, well, I set the service up there in the States. And I went to the app and I cut the service off. Well, they won't technically allow you to redo their service, re-up for their service while you're out of the country. So, there's this thing called Google One. Google Voice, Google Voice. I'm learning all these Googles. But it gave me an option when I discontinued that account with Google Fi to transfer my number back into Google Voice. And what that allows me to do is, as long as I have Wi-Fi, the calls go to my email. And some of them can be transcribed with audio and most of them you get a text message, like two-step verification codes. I have used it for that. I've used it to verify my phone number. Two-step verification is a big deal over here. So there in the States, set up your email if you're allowed to, through whatever company you're working with, to use your email as a verification. Now, I have mine set up for that. But having Google Voice send those codes to your email, it's not as effective as having an SMS sent directly to your phone, but it is a way to have an SMS for the two-step verification that you may need for your bank to be set up. So you can see just from the things that we've talked about, and these are basic things, very basic. We hadn't touched on housing, we hadn't touched on apartments, we hadn't touched on the cost of living, any number of things associated with this. If you're coming over here for the first time, I would suggest, depending on what your plans are, that if you want to bring cash, I would limit my amount to a couple $1,000, or at least to what I could give some research and some information, ideas about if you want to go to Cerrado Island or if you want to go to the whole island. while you're here, or if you want to go on a cruise, a scheduled cruise. They actually have cruises where you can go on the island because everything's island hopping down here. Plane, island, boats and ferries. So plan out ahead, kind of get an idea of your estimated expenses and stick with it. Now, I bought a little old money belt, and I highly recommend those. Now, most people wear them outside the shirt. I don't see any point in that. I put it up under my shirt, and I took it off, I think, going through the airport, and put it in my backpack. And when I got to get ready to get off the plane, I went into the backpack and I got my money belt, and I went to the bathroom and I put it back on. And of course, when we went through immigration, I had to go through a scanner. And I think at that time I took it off again, but at that point when I took it off and put it back in my backpack, and watched my backpack go through the scanner. So there's just a lot to think about and a lot to cover. And most of my videos you see, guys, are about substance abuse and treatment. I am not sure what direction I'm going to go with this channel. The substance abuse thing, I am a retired counselor, but when you do that, those are pretty boring videos for the most part, and it really forces me to try to stay on a specific issue and deliver some content that's close to the truth as I can get. Now, I don't use cue cards. I don't use edit on my phone to edit out any of my mistakes because I really don't know how to use edit that well. I barely figured out how to put the little floating text or across the phone. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing in the future. Any thoughts on like what you might want to see on the videos? I'm totally open to just anything that is of interest to you that might help you. I expect that I will do some more of the videos and the counseling and the recovery genre, but I don't know that I'll say specifically about niche, because I think that's the word they use for that. I'm interested in seeing if this video gets any views and what will come of it. Again, guys, I don't have anything in here right now, but I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. It costs nothing. Pass the link on to somebody else, because I think I have 10 subscribers. Now, a YouTube channel requires 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 view hours in order to even be considered for being monetized for the ads. That's my goal eventually, because I'd like to make some kind of income, but it's really not much. Even at 1,000 subscribers, it's a small channel, and it barely pays for coffee. But it's something I would like to do and pursue. But I want the content to be something useful and helpful to you, and I am totally open to any feedback, suggestions. Please feel free to ask questions, and I'll try to answer them in the comments. And if I get enough interest in this particular topic, I'd like to set up and do a live so I can interact with you and answer some of your questions the best I can. Right now, thank you for your time, and see you in the Philippines.